Hi, Resume Building 101. We're going to talk about how to create a stellar resume and cover letter yourself so you can land the ideal site and supervisor that you want. Whether you are using this for looking to get into a private or group practice or using this for any other kind of position in the clinical field or even outside of it. This is going to give you the building blocks that you can use to create an awesome resume that is going to help land you the job that you want, create the position that you want, and help you be miles ahead of your colleagues in any competition that you may think that you have out there. Okay, so first we're going to really get into the meat of resume building, and that starts with the professional experience. So all of those job listings as far as your job titles and accomplishments. So the job heading, the company name, location, job title, and date should follow a consistent format and will always be presented right before the job description to ensure the ATS applications can parse them correctly. So an ATS application gets scanned through a computer, and this is done in fairly larger organizations and companies and human resource departments. They will use a scanner that they can feed through real quickly that will pick up keywords and phrases that you use or don't use in your resume, and it will let them know whether you appear as a good candidate for their posting or not. And so since you want to definitely be in the pile of being a good candidate, you want to ensure that you have at least 60 to 80% of what is in the posting for that position states they're looking for. So you want to use a lot of the phrasing and language that they use. And the caveat to this is if you don't have the skills and the experience or capabilities that they're stating that they want in that person, then it does take some creativity and finessing to be able to communicate and use language that can state that you have the capability to do that. Maybe it's a position you aspire to get into or something you're looking to be able to do, but you don't actually have the experience yet. That's always the biggest challenge for employees and people trying to break into something. And that's where I can usually help someone and work with them to elicit out of them what can be said to be able to put themselves in the best position and shine a light on the best parts of what they can do and have done that can translate or transfer to that position they're aiming for. So going back to this, you want the company name, location, job title to be to the left, tab to the left, and the dates are usually to the right. You'll see an example of this. And so for the dates, you want to use either months and years or just years, but you don't want to mix them up. You want to be consistent because if you use months and years, you may want to be able to represent that you had, 4 months in one place, 8 months another place, and you don't want to be dishonest by making it seem like you were there an entire year. So in other cases, though, you will want to use only years because it might look like you have a ton of gaps in between employment, and it can make it look a little more seamless if you use years only. But whatever you decide to do, these are, the options that you have. Just be consistent. And then location should generally list the location of the company, unless doing so would create confusion. Like if you're a commuting employee or self-employed, and you really want the locations there so that a potential employer can see where you are willing to commute to, where you have commuted to, and just your general, area that you are familiar with in terms of job placements. So then you want to use a functional and common job title when possible. If the company you work for had a unique title for you, sometimes organizations do. They'll have extremely lengthy titles or odd names for what you actually do, and it doesn't translate well to other positions. So you want to actually use a different term or title to make it sound like something that's recognizable to a potential employer. So here's some examples. Instead of Geek Squad technician, use technical support specialist. Instead of owner, use operations manager or CEO, because those really speak more to the actual skills and responsibilities that you would have held in those positions. And instead of sandwich artist, use team member or cashier. Instead of eating disorder nutritional support coordinator and DBD group leader, use group counselor / nutritional counseling support. So you just want to make things sound simpler and more to the point and transferable titles that you might see, elsewhere. So then moving into the actual job description and duties, most often your duties should be presented in paragraph form, no more than 3 to 6 lines in length, or bullet points or a combination thereof. So there you have it. There really is a combination of ways you can present what you've done. And you're going to see some examples, and it's really a matter of preference about space limitations that you have and what you really want to get across. When crafting the job duties, put yourself in the shoes of the hiring manager. This is using your empathy skills, really, and then only include duties that are relevant to the job your client will be that you will be targeting. You're the client. Remember, you'll be able to expand on your employment history during the interview. So on the resume, only include information that answers the question, why? So this is the employer or potential supervisor asking this question. Why is this candidate the best person for the job? What would make them a good therapist in a private or group practice? And so then what you're wanting to do is in that resume, you're presenting to them, handing over and telling them, this is why. This is what makes me a good candidate. Wordsmith the document so the language is compelling with active language, high impact verbs, and appropriate adjectives and adverbs. Avoid undermining the impact by using adjectives and adverbs sparingly. So you're going to see a couple of examples. I think that's what will really make it come alive for you. But if you keep in mind strong verbs to start out and good language that is simple and compelling and to the point. Accomplishments and contributions. This is also very meaty here, and there are times it can be combined with the responsibilities or they can stand alone on their own. Potential employers and supervisors will be looking for an emphasis on achievements or an overview of what you've done clinically. So think of these questions. Do you have experience working one-on-one with clients? What are your strong points in doing so? These are really key questions to help you reflect on how you might be able to rephrase or flesh out what you've done and maybe haven't put language or words to quite yet, in a resume form. And then what have you learned that you can succinctly speak to? So think back on your positions you've held, and maybe practicum only as far as a mental, health position. And what did you learn as you started to see clients? That whole process from when you first sat with clients and then as you worked more and more, saw more and more, had supervision, reflected, maybe had your own personal therapy. Think about what you learned that you can, and just start writing that out. Don't even think that it needs to go in the resume quite yet. I think just this brainstorming process can help you pull things from that. And just no holds barred, just start writing it out. What are your strong points? What did you find particularly enlightening or different, unique? What did you learn, and what do you feel like you're on the trajectory of learning? So you can also talk about the process that you're in, the things that you are learning, the processes you're going through in developing yourself professionally, and also just the different aspects of your clinical work that you could go into as well. So you can talk more broadly about your general professional development as a therapist, the things you've learned, and also kind of where you see your growth going. Okay, so then quantities. Use hard numbers when possible. So if you have the option of listing something as a duty or as an accomplishment, choose accomplishment. So for instance, something that's okay is recruit skilled staff and supported retention efforts. Stronger way of putting it would be increased retention rate from 30% to 90% as a result of targeted recruitment efforts. So for us, I don't necessarily have percentage points in my resumes, but they can be good to have. I definitely recommend them, and I've helped others do this. And you can turn percentage rates just by thinking through, okay, if you started out with 3 clients and then you increase to 8, you can create a percentage from that. Or if you had a retention rate, for instance, you could say increased retention rate um, from 10% or 30% to 80%. If you had clients that stayed with you for a longer period of time as you started working with people, you could come up with those numbers if you wanted to. But the main point is if you can speak both in quantities and quality. So that's quantity. Now we're going to move on to quantity and quality a little bit more, qualitative. So outcomes, how much better things got, are more impressive than outputs, how much work got done. But outputs are better than including nothing. So ideally you want to, just like in that first bullet point there, we're fleshing out outcomes really. And, so thinking about what are you most proud of with respect to your performance in each role. And you can write those things down. How much better did you get as a therapist in the positions you've been in? What impact did you make in those positions? How many clients did you help improve in certain ways, or, help resolve problems, help alleviate pain? And you can flesh that out a little bit more. Those are really, brief phrases. But this is to give you ideas of points that you can flesh out more. So you have to think about the impacts that you made as far as a contribution or accomplishment. How did you help people? What end result do you think that had on their lives? How did it impact you, your personal growth? Because potential supervisors really like to know that you have that sort of self-insight and awareness as well. So not just, it's both the impact you're making on clients and on your own personal growth. Okay, so with clinical experience, this is what you want to do. First, start with a strong verb. You'll look down below. There's provide. On the next page, you'll see a lot more I have highlighted and broken down for you. Then you want to think about, okay, what did you do? What were your duties? Who did you do it with? The types of issues. What approaches did you use? And what improvements or increases did you experience or contribute to? So those are 4 questions that can help you in addition to what I just went through. This is all for the job description. So what you see below is the italic paragraph. So this one, the actual content in this won't probably relate to any of your experience, but on the next page it will. So this is just, provide individual and couples therapy for a broad range of issues. I go into what the issues were that were covered, what the approach was, and or approaches were, and then the improvement. So increasing the caseload from 12 to 18, and at what fee. So these 4 really break down in more detail. And I actually want to start from the bottom and move up. So if you can bring your eyes down to the Center for Individual and Family Therapy in Orange, California. So this was a trainee position similar to your practicum positions, And you'll see years were used for the bottom two positions. And I know this isn't exactly the rule for the dates here, but there was reason for this too, and it was what was requested. So you're going to see here conducted individual family therapy with women and couples for issues ranging from depression, trauma, and eating disorders to relationship and family conflict in a group practice setting. The part highlighted there is because I want you to see how you can encapsulate a wide range of issues that you've dealt with, that you've worked with, without having to list every single one out. And you probably want to touch on the ones that are the most common that you worked with and the ones that you probably feel the strongest with. So, ranging from depression, trauma, and eating disorders. Those were three common ones that were touched on and dealt with a lot, as well as relationship and family conflict. There was many other issues in between, in addition to this, but those were the main ones. And so that's a way to encapsulate it. 4 issues from blah, 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 and to blah, 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 and then where in a group practice setting. Okay, moving up to journey coaching and counseling, led individual therapy with women and couples. So right away, you're breaking in with a strong verb and stating what was done. Individual therapy, and then it goes into a similar statement as the bottom one. But what's different is in this one, you can see what's also stated is gained marketing training for private practice and grew a practice from 5 clients a week to 13 and trained in EMDR. So that speaks to the business side of that position and what was accomplished. So you can speak of areas where you've gotten training or are getting trained as gaining specific type of training, or gained if it's in the past tense. And you can speak about growth. You can speak about theoretical orientation and trainings and the levels of all of that. Even if you're not certified, those trainings and workshops still enhance your skills and abilities. And especially if they apply to wherever, if they're applicable or relevant to where you're applying, then that's what you want included. If say someone could care less about EMDR, a supervisor, say they have a completely different orientation and that's not even something that they would think was beneficial, although nowadays it is, most people, that's pretty acceptable nowadays and sought after. But let's say it was something else and that potential supervisor wasn't necessarily interested in that and worked and taught from a completely different orientation, you could merely leave that off. It's not being dishonest. It's just you can include and not include certain items. So just know that going forward. And then moving up to the Center for Discovery, both these last positions are intern positions. And then again, starting out with a strong verb, counseled and assisted with group therapy. And then handled suicidality and addictions, and it goes on to what else was handled. Liaised among medical personnel, supported and implemented program, mission, managed crises, conducted individual and family therapy. So you see strong verbs expressing what was handled, what was conducted, managed, implemented, how you supported other staff, and so you show yourself as a team member and also independently handling some serious issues. Okay, and then sober tech. Okay, again, starting out with a strong verb, conducted individual therapy. So conducted, led, counseled, provided. These are pretty strong verbs to use in terms of accomplishments and being a therapist. And if you wanted to get into issues too, you could say processed, facilitated, words like that. And then what I wanted to point out was the specificity of saying in an intensive treatment program or for a residential eating disorder program. You want to let them know what kind of a program it was. Is it outpatient, inpatient? Was it intensive? Is it residential? Is it in a private practice? You want to make sure it's clear what kind of a environment and situation you're in, because that tells a supervisor and a potential employer a lot too, because they have an idea of these different environments and scenarios that the interns and therapists work in. And then saying that you handled crisis intervention, de-escalation, harm avoidance. Those are being able to state that you've handled issues like that are really important, because in a private and group practice, a supervisor has to be able to know and feel confident in your ability to, say, worst case scenario, your client gets into, shifts into suicidality or gets into a crisis and or start is harming, and they have to be able to trust that you will be able to handle that and have experience with that and know what to do. Because even in a group and private practice, even though you have a supervisor, they're not in the room with you, and you're only meeting with them on an as needed basis, or once, maybe twice a week. They are probably going to be available to you more than that, but in terms of being able to sit and talk through um, troublesome issues, they want to be able to have confidence in you being able to handle that. So being able to talk about things like that, because you might not necessarily think, oh, how would that apply to working in a private practice? People are coming in and talking about such more mild-mannered issues. You'd be surprised there are people that come in and can get into some sticky situations and have some serious issues going on, where it can be complex trauma, severe depression, intense anxieties, and so they can get into suicidality. And there's a lot of addictions, there's a lot of eating disorder type issues, body image issues, unresolved traumas that people walk around, life with, and sometimes, end up coming to therapy for. So it's best if you can communicate these things that you have done in other positions that might be considered more of the, crisis type situations. And also, I didn't highlight them, but it's equally important, being able to liaise with personnel and staff and support them, implement program stuff. So all of that is vitally important, which is why all of this is included. You'll see, they're very short descriptions, but they encompass quite a lot. Okay, so a couple more. I want to move from the bottom up again. With Full Circle Outreach, this was a substance abuse treatment center, and so starting out with a strong verb, taught, family dynamics, and so teaching is something else. You might not even think of yourself as a teacher or an instructor in certain positions that you may get into, but when you lead groups or you are part of facilitating a large recovery groups or children, at-risk youth, there's just a variety of situations that you can get into in positions that you have where you might be teaching and not realizing it. This, in fact, wasn't an actual teaching position, but I wanted to show this to you so that you can see how you could even present a position that you've had or parts of a position you had as being teaching, and creating teaching presentations. If you're ever a part of pulling together, coordinating worksheets, workshop material, things that you hand out and facilitate discussion with, that can all be included in a job description. Led small therapy groups and talk, what issues you talked on, how you went about that, what your approach was, utilized humor, emotion, thought-provoking questions to engage group and elicit active participation. So all this is language you could use if you ever have led groups or done anything along the, teaching side of things. And then the Center for Depth Psychology. So this was, led individual, and this is very similar to what some of the other job description was. So I want to point out here how it talks about increasing a caseload from 8 to 10 clients a week to 12 to 15 with a pay rate between 80 to 130. And again, implemented effective marketing and advertising approaches, became certified in advanced psychodynamic psychotherapy. So those are being able to emphasize the business side of things right after you talk about what you did, where you did it, who you were supervised or employed by, any specialties, and then you can go into the business side of things. Okay, so that's some pretty in-depth coverage of job descriptions for that in terms of some strong language you can use. This is a different take on it. This is someone who's a clinical director and applying for a clinical director position. So some of these job descriptions, and this was in an ABA, which is autistic behavioral population. So a lot of this language is geared toward that. Manage center operations with a focus on, and then talks about what the ABA services and what that included, recruiting and training staff and overseeing revenue generation, and lead the training and support to behavioral therapists. So this person oversaw the training of the actual behavioral therapist, and it led to enhanced education and continuously improving services based on the latest research and available services. So that's a combination of both a responsibility and accomplishment without having to elaborate in too much detail. And then the next one, educated and trained staff therapist, and, including managing a caseload and preparing and submitting related documentation, conducted functional and behavioral assessments in order to recommend positive behavior supports and goals for children with ASD and other disorders. So those are other examples of a kind of a combination of both administrative and clinical role that someone might have in a center or agency. And then the last one, provided individual and family counseling services, including consultation, training, and prevention services in consultation with the supervisor. So you can see how just one line can encompass, quite a lot that that person did there. And then just a couple more that I want to cover that are highlighted here. So a teaching assistant prepared statistics-related material in easy to understand formats and instructed students in lab on proper techniques for performing analysis. So again, in one statement, very concise but encompassing quite a lot. And the next one, as a membership director, developed service programs and innovative demographic assessment tools and planned and coordinated activities to grow membership. So again, aligned to really encompass a lot and not say more than they really needed to say. Okay, so here's a couple examples from, this is a couple positions pulled from my resume on the management part of it, and this is a combination of both a paragraph or sentence combined with bullet points. So for freelancing, I had been a freelancer for a long time. So it starts out with saying provide executive level resume writing and editing, including interviewing clients, career consulting, and creating content for LinkedIn profiles, cover letters, and customer service. So I've done other freelancing as well, but this is one focused on that. And then the title is senior writer, editor. And then here's the quick bullet points to talk about accomplishments. Became a top writer and editor within the first year of employment, entrusted with difficult projects from customers who were dissatisfied with original writers, received consistently high ratings from clients. So these are bullets that you could probably easily transfer to maybe areas that you've worked in, other types of positions where maybe you got a promotion or you were entrusted with um, specific types of projects or work, and what you did with that, and why they entrusted that with you. So you can speak to those items in other types of positions. And then another one at Arbonne International, this is the corporate department of a health and wellness beauty product company, earned a promotion within 3 months of onboarding, handling high volume human interest and success stories, acted as the internal reporter, gathering information, interviewing clients, and writing stories. So as a writer, editor, managed accounts and the production process through finalizing marketing pieces, handled large volumes of emails, correspondence, and phone calls with clients, implemented and maintained a compliance, legal, and editorial policy standards, blah, blah, blah. So you can see that this is a way to combine both responsibilities and accomplishments, and you can be creative with it. It doesn't have to be one way or the other. It's just the best way to maximize the use of the space you have and get the points across that you want to get across. Okay, moving on to career notes. This is also called the footnote or the synopsis of past experience that's older than 10 to 15 years. So anything that's past 10, 15 years ago, you don't want to go into any depth about unless it's absolutely relevant to the position you're applying for and you have space for it. So a lot of times we don't have enough space to include everything, so that's why this comes in handy. So this should be brief, no more than 3 to 4 lines, and it can be as little as 1 or 2 lines. And so you want to omit dates for these and not include the job description or accomplishments. So it's going to be the role that you held in the company only. So here's some examples. If you want to just move your eyes down to the quotes, additional experience as, you write the job and the company, and you do that for each one, just as a line item like that, like you're narrating it. Or you can list it below like it has or in bullet points. So questions to ask yourself: does the content you have developed clearly illustrate your expertise and professional background that's related to your goals? So the position that you want to go for, when you read through your resume, is it answering that question, those questions that we asked that an employer or supervisor would be asking? Does this show you as a good candidate for XYZ, for private or group practice, for whatever the position is you're applying for? Have you used strong action-oriented statements? Do you have sentences that start with noun phrases or adjective phrases? So you don't have to have, full grammatically correct sentences. You don't want to be necessarily using words that don't need to be there. It needs to be as short and concise as possible. Have you delineated, that word is so hard, have you delineated achievements from responsibilities and duties? So that just means, have you separated them from one another, or did you combine them? Just be aware of how you're presenting it. Is the information evenly represented to allow for a clean and uncluttered appearance? So this is how the layout looks. Have you properly used tabs and formatting tools to ensure consistent layout? Have you eliminated information that's not compelling or less related to your goals? So that's where you want to read through and delete extra words that don't make it compelling and that may take away from what the job is you're going for. So there may be lots of stuff you've done in each job that it could take a whole page to describe one job, but you may only need 2 or 3 of those points within that whole page to get across to that potential supervisor or employer, what you did and what a strong, experience that was for you. Are there similar consecutive roles that can be combined to show streamlined work history? So I used to see this a lot in job fields like IT and engineering, where a lot of the language would be the same for each job. And so there can be ways to combine that. And so you're not saying the same thing over and over again. Okay, moving on to the title, the resume title. It's a clear, focused resume title where your goals are clear and focused. The resume title tells the reader who you are and what role you're looking to fill. So it's important to follow these guidelines. The title must be one that you've held. So, for instance, if the position you're going for says clinical director or clinical coordinator, and you've never done any of that, you haven't coordinated whatever it is they're asking you to coordinate, let alone you haven't been the director of that. So you definitely want to avoid putting that as your resume title. Even though you may be applying for that job title, you want to refrain from putting that on the title. What you want to do instead is put something there that either is a position that you've held that's close to that. Maybe it was, I can't think of a similar title to clinical coordinator or clinical director. But what you want to have is, if you have something that's similar listed on your resume, put that as the resume title, or instead just use your license or registration title. If you are a professional clinical counselor associate, or marriage and family therapist associate, or registered clinical social worker, you just want to use whatever the title is that goes with your status. And then you even want to have your number there. Okay. So this part is so important. Your summary paragraph, that's your career summary. This real estate is so important. It's crucial because this is your first opportunity to make a positive impression on the reader. So that's on your potential supervisor or employer. So if they're not drawn in by the summary, they might not read the rest of it. So therefore, it's vitally important to craft a powerful summary that describes your most relevant qualifications. So going into more details, the specifications. Be concise. Keep the paragraph 4 to 6 lines long. Don't use the same descriptive words twice in the summary if you can avoid it. Some words are the only ones that fit, but focus on the big picture items in your skill set. Don't simply list everything that you know how to do. Look forward. So rather than describing where you've been, focus on where you're looking to go. Review the job postings provided or postings that match your desired job titles. Develop a short list of required qualifications and include those qualifications in the summary. So that goes along with what I was saying at the beginning, where you want to, if possible, include 60 to 80% of what that job posting is that you're going for. Or in the instance of a private and group practice, you want to use that real estate space of the career summary to show how you would be a good fit in a private or group practice. Oh, another point too on here is that we don't use objectives anymore. So you know how there's your name and contact information, and a lot of people use objectives. That isn't no longer something that's standard or used. We use this summary paragraph instead. Okay, so then no personal pronouns. So each sentence should complete the thought, I possess a or I am a, without using those words. You don't say I possess or I'm a strong candidate for. You'll see an example. So what you do use is a power statement. So you may even have a tagline underneath your resume title. It may say something along the lines of uh, exemplary therapist in settings working with such and such population. I mean, it can just be one power statement. Or you could not have that and just go straight into the career summary. But either way, you have the career summary there. Here's a couple of examples. Accomplished therapist certified in DBT and advanced psychodynamic therapy and solution-focused methods. Outstanding ability to develop rapport and cultivate therapeutic relationships. Strong experience in assessment and treatment plan writing and documentation. Excellent skills in research and project management with experience in comprehensive case presentations and consultation. Experience using online platforms including telemedicine and consultation. So the first statement is the strongest and most applicable or relevant to what you're going for. And this it's second, third, fourth, and so on. So all of those statements are relevant to working in a private or group practice. You need the theory, you need the experience, the ability to develop rapport, relationships, be able to do, writing, documentation, be able to research, manage projects, and do case presentations. So all of that's very important, and you'll see none of it's using the I or any extra words that don't need to be there. Another one, so this is the person that was going for the clinical director position who had clinical director experience. An accomplished bilingual clinical director with 7 years of experience leading management and direction of an ABA therapy center. I'm going to stop there. I want you to see how that's one sentence that says what that person does, what's unique, being bilingual, having 7 years of experience, so the quantity of experience can be used, but you can see in above it was not used, and leading management and direction of an ABA therapy center, so what she did. Then experienced in providing the wide range of services for children with ASDs. So not only has she managed, but she has provided the wide range of services, including working with families in home and at school, as well as publicly in communities. Strong expertise in leading the development and implementation of center operations, including strategic business plans, as well as successfully managing the programs in a profitable manner. So again, speaking to the responsibilities and how well she did that in an accomplished way. Exceptional experience in leading and managing staff, highly accomplished in improving productivity, profitability, and employee engagement, and ability to manage revenue generation. So you can see here, together we worked on this and came up with this language. And some of this you are free to use, saying words like strong expertise, exceptional experience, experienced in, and just kind of use the template here, to guide your own generation of what you want to be able to say about what makes you shine as a therapist and clinician. Okay, so I know this is all a lot. We're getting close here. The next part are going to be those bullet points underneath, core competencies, also called areas of expertise or key strengths. And this section is specifically designed to allow for a brief snapshot of your value. So this is something that a hiring manager, a supervisor will glance at to see what the synopsis of what you bring to the table. And this is definitely an area where someone might ask more questions about. So you want to make these really honed in and crystal clear. You want to use a consistent structure, emphasize hard skills. So avoid saying stuff like excellent communication. That would be considered a soft skill. You want to be more specific. Rapport development, relationship strengthening, something more specific about communication. And then avoid a lot of technological names, avoid software hardware names, unless it's, again, really relevant to the job you're going for. Be brief and focused. I use a table, not columns. I'm going to show you this, and keep it balanced. So I'm just going to move on to show you. So the top one is, 2 tables, and you can see you can use longer, you can see you have more words there, all in all. and use the slash system so you can combine words and phrases that are related that also kind of expand what you're trying to get across. So, like with academic writing, teaching, communicating, that says a lot more than just saying academic writing or saying advanced psychodynamic theory slash therapy. That says a lot more, that there's both the understanding of the theory and being able to apply it in therapy. Or rapport building, relationship management, research slash information gathering. And again, these are all phrases, you're free to use if they are relevant for you and are capable of expressing what you can do and what's true for you. Feel free. And then below, you'll see more of the three-pronged approach: human resources, operations management, staff training slash supervision. So one thing I want to point out too is we want to do these in order of importance as far as their relevancy to that position. So you'll see for the bottom one, teaching and instruction at the end. That was probably the least relevant to the position she was applying for, but it's still important and it still shows leadership and supervision type skills. And same thing with the top one, that contemporary technology, online savvy. Still important and relevant to being a therapist in private or group practice, but not the most. So you want to kind of move from the most relevant to the, I would say, least relevant, even though it's definitely relevant because all of this is prime real estate. Okay. Education credentials. This is usually the last part on a resume if you have plenty of job experience to have in that meaty part. If you don't have much clinical experience yet in terms of even volunteer or past job experience in another field, if you don't have either of those so if you don't have a lot of past experience in any job, then you want to have your education and credentials right after those bullet points, after the last section we talked about. So then it would be job title, resume title, career summary, bullet points, and then education and credentials. Okay, and then you might speak about your practicum, and that might be all you have, and that's perfectly fine. In the other cases where you have under professional experience, you have both clinical and non-clinical experience, education and credentials come last. So here's a couple of examples where you have your bachelor's listed first and then your master's. You have what the degree was that you went for, the degree, or I'm sorry, the registration or license number. Here's another example where there's a list of universities and degrees, programs, certifications, and they're all listed in order of importance in time frame. So that's another way of doing it. So then I want to go into the cover letter real quick. So you want to have the formatting or the template the same for both the resume and cover letter. So that top part of your resume that you'll have, you can basically copy and paste it onto another Word document to serve as your cover letter. Excuse me. And then you're going to have it formatted just like so. When you move down to the language, the actual letter part, you can start as strong as this: ready to deliver immediate and long-lasting results as such and such in the title. I'm confident my significant career is a perfect match for your needs. And you can change this up. You can change it to ready to move into a private or group practice, seeing individual and couples with such and such issues, and then summarize that. And then I'm confident that, and you can change that up. Confident that my clinical experience, my education and training are a perfect match for your needs. I have a blend of, being able to be independent and dependent, to be able to be under supervision and work on my own. And you can speak to some of those things that we went through, earlier with strengths, and being in a private or group practice. You can talk about your years of experience and what you've done. You can talk about your transferable skills, even from other fields and positions. And so then you want to have a few highlights. You can literally just copy and paste some of the bullet points or phrases that you had in your resume, or you can just rephrase them here. So usually people rephrase them, but they're the strongest points that are on the resume. So then you're just pulling from there and doing a little bit of editing. And then you just close it with, letting them know you're sincerely interested in further exploring this opportunity, to propose a time to meet, when you can discuss and basically have a conversation, about your background, what you have to offer, and if it'll be, a good fit, and then thank them for their time. So that is really a lot of detail for you to take in, and I understand if there's going to be questions that come up along the way, and feel free to post your feedback that you have, watching this, listening to it. Let me know if you have questions that come up. Feel free to post that or email me directly. I'd be happy to explain a little bit more to you, answer any quick questions that come up. But I'm really hoping and believing that this is going to give you a lot to run with and make your resumes and your cover letters so much better than you could have imagined that they would be. This is information that people pay hundreds, close to $1,000 for. This is full-on resume building training that you're very privileged to be able to get, that I honestly just wanted to give you because I realized giving a general overview could be helpful in some ways. You might pick up, some of it, but this is going to just lay it all out for you and give you what you need to really strengthen yours, revamp it, and make a killer resume that you can use. So thank you guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Happy resume writing.